it came out yesterday that Tennessee could be facing potential major violations from the NCAA due to their NIL collective because of some promiscuous behavior with the new quarterback Nico Lamalavea. Well, here's what I would do if I was Tennessee. Number one, go kick rocks. The NCAA is losing their power. They're Hans Gruber hanging off the side of the building, asking Bruce Willis, please just don't kick me off as we ride into the sunset. How can you enforce rules? Because, to be honest with you, I don't think there's any rules when it comes to NIL. But how could you enforce rules retroactively when there were no rules in place to start with? We've seen this happen to Florida. We've seen this happen to Florida State. Now, it is attached to the collective, the Spire group. So this isn't like the old school, level 1 violations that you could get. This is purely attached to the entity that is the NIL collective. But as we know, the NCAA is losing power by the second. And how ironic would it be that Tennessee, a team coming off of having to self-report the whole Jeremy Pruitt situation with the NCAA, could end up being the death knell when it comes to the NCAA and college football? Because I don't really think Charlie Baker and his group of mistake makers understand what they just stepped in. But if I'm Josh Heupel, if I'm anybody associated with the Tennessee program, even including the fans, I'm not worrying about this one. Because at the end of the day, if you shelter your kids, you can't be upset when they go nuts when they leave. And that's exactly what happened with NIL and the NCAA. And they're out the door anyway. So we'll see how it goes. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, going to bring him in, want his thoughts on that. My brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crane. David, not to get too deep into the nuts and bolts of it, to make it somewhat simplified for our audience, there's been no notice of allegations. And unlike your alma mater and recent national champion, Michigan, I don't see the commissioner of the conference suspending the coach. Greg Sankey, there'd have to be video evidence of Josh Heupel getting caught red-handed with the president of Tennessee somehow partaking in this for there to be a preemptive suspension without an NOA. But I will say what I continue to say and what I said about Michigan. If I'm Tennessee, I'm pointing at the NCAA and saying, I dare you to do something. I dare you to do something, because they are losing all their power. Will this bear fruit in a negative side for Tennessee, or is this just the NCAA trying to have one last flash in the pan as they ride off into the sunset, hopefully, with college football?
Well, of course, there's no notice of allegations officially, Jake. Why do that now when you could do that 3 years from now and have it drop on signing day to hurt Tennessee even worse? I mean, that's probably where we're headed. I thought the response from Tennessee to the NCAA was spot on, because immediately when I saw this, I thought, will someone please tell the NCAA that student athletes get paid now? What exactly are the rules? This is the same thing we asked when it came to Michigan. It's the same thing we asked when it came to LSU players not being able to play because they signed autograph. And that statement from Tennessee was, the leaders of intercollegiate athletics owe it to student athletes and their families to establish clear rules to act in their best interest. Instead, 2.5 years of vague and contradictory NCAA memos and emails about name, image, and likeness have created extraordinary chaos that student athletes and institutions are struggling to navigate. In short, the NCAA is failing. And that's the best statement in this whole thing. The NCAA is failing. And when we saw the College Football Playoff Committee be asked, hey, what are you going to do about this investigation and these sanctions possibly with the University of Michigan? The College Football Playoff Committee down the stretch of this last season said that we have nothing to do with that. That's not our job. We're not the NCAA. So then why, if you're a university, would you take into account anything that the NCAA is saying here when you know you can still make the college football playoff? Clearly, that's who's in charge. That's who's managing the money, because the NCAA may later vacate your wins and say you didn't win it. Who cares what they say? We don't need you to tell us who won the championship. We have eyeballs, and you're 100% right on Greg Sankey. Class is in session for Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti. I think you should take notes from Greg Sankey on how this thing gets handled down the stretch.
No, without a doubt, and we want to get to the chat. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are taking live calls. It's going to open at 7:15 a.m. Central, 8:15 a.m. Eastern. Give us a buzz. We want to know what you think. But like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Blaine, this goes back to what I've said, and I think what everybody agrees with, whether you're on the side of college players getting paid, whether you're on the other side of, well, they shouldn't, they're getting an education. when you just let NIL out of the box with really no rules. I mean, you go back and look. I believe Tennessee's lawyers used vague and contradictory. That's putting it lightly to me. I didn't even think the rules were vague. I just think they really didn't exist. But when you let something out of the box, right, just like with the transfer portal, and you give it no guardrails, how can you then go back and say, you know what, we're going to use different spots to say that you broke the rules retroactively? How does that work? How could we exist in that world? How could I ever take you serious in that world? That's why I'm telling Tennessee fans, I would not worry about this at all. I would not lose one. I would be more upset about Lamont Paris and the Gamecocks basketball team coming in and beating y'all last night on the road, which was a huge upset with the way that Tennessee's been playing and been playing at home, than I would about this. Back in the day, when you used to get that, oh no, the NCAA is investigating you, it was death. It was the plague on your program. Now it's laughed at. But Blaine, it should be laughed at when all of a sudden you're saying you broke rules that didn't exist until now. That's not how it works.
Well, yeah, we can get up here, I mean, and say the same thing 3 different ways. I mean, no one believes in the NCAA. No one takes the NCAA serious, and you wasn't their hall monitor. Okay, that's what they are. I mean, you got the pass. We were all those kids back in the day a little bit. You go to the bathroom, you stay out for maybe 45 minutes from class. We've all done that before. There's always that one kid walking around the school. All right, walking around the school, getting ready to tell a teacher. But I promise you, 1, no one cares what you say. And 2, the teacher likes me more than you, buddy. And I promise you, the College Football Playoff Committee likes Tennessee a lot more than NCAA does. No one cares what rules. When did that ever become a thing? It's about money. This is what the college kids get paid. You can't pick and place the guys you want to go after. It's the NCAA is a regime. That's what they are. They're a regime that needs to be stopped, and they will be stopped because there's one man. What? 2 men? Excuse me, 2 men. One who just got. I just saw him boogie boarding the other day on a video on Twitter.
Nikki Sticks.
That's Nikki Sticks. That's Nick Saban. All right, and just give Greg Sankey, aka Palpatine, the keys to the Senate.
Yeah.
Just give it to him. It's time. The moving of the guard. He is the future.
Well, I've continued to say we should make a college football commission, and we're actually sitting next to our boy T-Bob. We got Andy Staples over here. We could take the people sitting in this room right now, even the NFL guys. Y'all can come too and create a better situation than what the NCAA is doing for college football. You know what? College basketball. Here's the thing, David. Like, you think college football is pushing you out? Let college basketball keep going in this NIL space, too. They're eventually going to put you out. But, Blaine, I'm with you 100%. It's an absolute joke. We want to know what the Booster Club thinks about it as well. Let's go ahead and get over there.
One thing quickly. Hold on. Just on the NCAA point quickly, you know, it's not the NCAA's fault for not establishing any of those guardrails that you're talking about and having this new era ushered in, because they did lose the O'Bannon and the Alston cases, right? Like, that's what ushered in this new era. The NCAA has tried to put limits on the transfer portal and NIL and things like that. The problem is, under NCAA leadership, we should have never had a ban on being able to profit off name, image, and likeness in the first place. It's all well and good to call someone an amateur and you don't have pay for play. But if student athletes had been able to be in a car commercial or to be able to sign autographs for money, the NCAA should have never been standing in their way from that in the first place, which led to this springing up, which now you can't put guardrails on. And then, like you said, picking and choosing of who gets in trouble. I'm watching Texas players ride around in Lamborghinis right now, but then all of a sudden Tennessee did something wrong in the NIL space. Where are these rules? Where can we all read them and read exactly how one school violated them and the other didn't?
Yeah, look. That's my whole point. I'm not saying the NCAA is the only one to blame for there not being guardrails on this. And yes, going back to the beginning, players should have been able to be in car commercials. But it's just like anything. Is why I give Nick Saban credit for being the greatest, head coach of all time in college, is because he evolved, he adapted. Once you realize it was going to change, you need to have a good plan of action for how to handle it. So and then I tell you what you don't do. When you do lose those cases, and it does kind of go down like this, you don't just start individually penalizing certain places. When everybody else is doing the same thing, basically, with these collectives, which I think is one of the biggest kind of bugaboos that went along with it. It wasn't rolled out very smoothly. But you've got to be able to evolve. We always say you're evolving or dissolving, you're adapting or you're dying. You're either being malleable or you're invaluable. At the end of the day, you've got to be able to adjust along with everything else. Hey, YouTube, what's up? It's a road game for us. but it's never a road game for you. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, turn that notification bell on and ring it like Quasimodo, except we all know you're a lot better looking.